All right. Well, good evening, everybody. Let's get started here. Tonight is going to be Explore 101, and we have two of our more experienced coaches in the state, Peggy Maricle and Jen Black, that we're going to basically, they're taking control of today's presentation. Again, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Craig Peterman. I volunteer at Badger Bots Robotics, and we are the program delivery organization for the state of Wisconsin for both the FLL Explore and the FLL Challenge program. As I've expressed every meeting, my objective is to give a stronger foundation and structure to the Explore program, which hopefully will then keep more kids involved, give them more chances to present, and then that will create a better experience that they'll keep on moving forward up the first program ladder. As I got Jay Church here, he is recording the session this evening, and it will be posted on the FLL Wisconsin YouTube channel, give him an hour or so, maybe even tomorrow. So I'm going to now pass the presentation over to Jen and Peggy and let them go.
Okay. Well, I put together a slideshow that will kind of run through. It starts with just kind of the basics of what is Explore, that hopefully you are familiar with most of that beginning part. And then we'll look through what a meeting looks like, a season looks like. And Jen will also pop in with her experiences, and because there's no one way that it has to be done. So it's always great to hear all the different ways that it can be done. So let's see if I can share my screen here.
Yes, I brought props, Peggy.
Nice.
So I've got a kit and I've got this year's mat when we're ready for that.
Okay, are you guys seeing my screen?
Yep.
Okay. So, okay, first LEGO League Explore, it's for up to 6 students, ages 6 to 10, focuses on the fundamentals of engineering as they explore real-world problems, learn to design and code, and create unique solutions made with LEGO bricks and powered by LEGO education robots. They go on a journey of discovery to learn all they can about the topic, then present their findings in the form of a team poster and the LEGO model that moves. So those bottom things are those big goals at the end of the season. In August, actually on August 1st, they'll release the new challenge for teams that focuses on scientific topic. This year it's Masterpiece. Teams are sent on a journey of discovery to learn all that they can about the topic, present their findings in the form of the team poster and the LEGO model that moves. The cost, we have the team registration. I believe I have all up-to-date costs on here. If you have not gotten this far, it's $125 for the team registration. That includes your all your booklets that you need for the year, the model pieces for the season build. There's $18 shipping. And then you also will need some sort of robot kit. This is the Spike Essential I have on here, which I believe it's still at the $294 with $15 shipping on that. There have been in the past, you could use LEGO We Do. That one is retired. It has been allowed in the past. I don't know if we have any information for sure that it's still going. I believe it is for this year. Other things that you need to include in dealing with your cost is you're going to need some sort of a computer or tablet to work through the coding lessons with the kids. If you have a touch screen, that is very, very helpful with this age group. Team t-shirts are great. They like to look like a team. If they're going to an event, it makes it a lot easier to keep track of them. Some sort of camera or phone for taking pictures. If you have an old smartphone that is no longer hooked up to anything, that you can just make sure you have it charged at the beginning of the meetings, and then everything's all in one place. When you get to the end of the season, make sure you do take pictures throughout. Otherwise, you're going to have a hard time with that poster at the end of the season. And just some smaller things, poster materials, some sort of bin to put all your LEGO prototyping pieces. That's really just LEGO bricks that come in the kit. I like to have a decent sized one because the kids will dig through that as they're building all sorts of things throughout the season. If you have access to a larger screen, you're doing any videos, that's helpful. So you're not all huddled around a tiny screen. The meeting guides come with it, with your registration and engineering notebooks for all the students. The weekly meetings are all laid out. really minimal pre-planning is necessary. I will tell you that the very first time I did the program, I ran it. After that, for several seasons, it was actually run primarily by my middle school students, especially my daughter ran it for several years. So it's an easy one to run. Time commitment, 10 to 12 sessions for about an hour is a pretty good estimate. You could do it in fewer sessions if you wanted to cut some things. You could expand and add all sorts of field trips, and there's tons and tons of information you can research, and you can go through all the extra coding lessons in the robot kits, all sorts of things if you really want to extend your season. But this 10 to 12 is kind of your general. So then getting into what does that season really look like? So I have the booklets from last year's season that I thought we'd kind of take a look at. Is it still showing you my screen? Can you see this still? Okay. So this is last year's book. And beginning, so this is the one, let's see, this is the team meeting guide. So this is the coach book, basically. It's going to go through and give you some general information to begin with. This is the page that talks about what kind of their main goals throughout the season, their challenge for the year. They talk about the core values. They give you team roles. These are all great roles. I don't know about your experience, Jen, but on a team of 6, if you go to build something and you give them these roles, I'm going to tell you that you're going to have 4 kids that have nothing much to do and kind of bored and bugging you. So we try to split it up so we have a few more builders and more active roles has been more successful for us, or smaller teams. One of those 2 things. Is that kind of been your experience, Jen?
Yeah, I've never used these roles, but after the first couple seasons where we had 1 kit for 6 kids, I started purchasing more kits as I had funds to do so. So now I have 1 kit for every 2 kids. I'll echo that if you have 1 kit, I'd recommend only 4 kids. If you have only 4 kids, you can probably get away with a coach and a support. If you have 6 kids, I recommend at least 2 coaches, preferably 2 coaches and a parent. So you have 1 parent for every 2 kids. But you know, however much chaos you're willing to accept is how much chaos you will get. I do encourage the coaches in Elmbrook to try out within the book the projects with the We Do or the Spike Prime kits before they actually go to the lessons, just so that you know how it goes, that you know that it'll function at least one time. I especially would recommend that when you finally do get your iPad or other device set up, this is the Spike Prime app. So you would choose Essential because the other one is for Challenge. And this is where all the guided lessons are in this Essential bin here. So try them out before you go in blind is my recommendation. Go ahead.
Okay, and this is where it talks about the 2 different kits, the Spike Essentials or the We Do kit. Like I said, in the past, both have been allowed. I'm assuming that for now, they both will continue to be allowed. This gives you a breakdown of what's inside your, I call it the Explore kit. The box you get, the season themed box, will have numbered bags. These are your prototyping pieces that I talked about that you just throw in a big bin for building all sorts of things throughout the season. But keep each other one separate until you're ready for it, so you don't get those pieces all mixed together. Some more tips. This is kind of their basic session layout that they lay out all 12 sessions for you.
Hey,
Yep.
Peggy, on the picture, you said, I think they showed like bag 4 having the motor and the spike in there. I think that's probably not accurate, right? They have the parts to make the things that attach to it, but not the
correct.
Correct.
Good point. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. These have the hubs for each of them, and looks like, yeah, the motors and a few pieces that come out of your robot kit. The bag 4 will have this plate underneath and a few of these longer beams and things that will attach those two when you get to that point.
Yeah, I just didn't want people expecting that in the box.
Just to clarify, in that picture, the top was the spike prime and the bottom was the we do. So you would not get both of those in your kit. If it's a spike prime and you're given a kit by a previous team, it's in a yellow box. If it's a we do, it's in a very flat blue box. And historically, the more, I guess, technically excited coach will enjoy the we do. And the more creatively minded coach will enjoy the spike prime. So see what happens there. Ultimately, everything costs money, right? So it doesn't matter which kit you use. They're both functional. I've actually seen in competition or expo, I've seen people also use the spike prime to go ahead and drive their we do elements. If you choose to do that and share a spike prime between a challenge and an explore team, understand that Lego does not support spike prime in any of their guided stuff. So you would have to figure out how to hook that guy up yourself. But they do have instructions, or have in the past, for both the spike prime and the we do, to connect up to the mission models for the season.
Okay, so this session layout, they kind of break everything down where they have kind of an introduction activity. There's typically 2 tasks planned throughout the meeting, and then kind of your wrap up, cleanup. For me, this introduction activity, they have a lot of them. Last year were more of sketching activities, I believe. We switched them and did them building because that kind of kept the kids going longer. For us, we usually had those kids that a couple of them would show up 10 minutes early and some of them would be, 2 to 3 minutes late. So giving them something right away that would keep them going. So we would, the first one would be discover, and would have something up on the screen that shared that core value of discover, and say something like, build something that shows something that you've learned, type thing. Something really kind of general. They can do whatever they want with it. At the end, probably 5 minutes after our time that we were supposed to start, we usually call for sharing, go around the whole group, have everyone tell what they built or what they were working on building, because some of them are not finished, but encourage them to talk about what they were working on, and then take it apart. This one last time I did not have the kids take everything apart, and I will never do that again because it caused problems later on. Have them, or take it apart yourself, break things down, because you don't want things half built that someone else takes apart later and causes problems. And at the end, we always have some sharing time too, that whatever they finished here, they share amongst the group before they do that last bit of cleanup. You'll see that these 3 last year were building those I call mission models with it. And these 3 were the coding lessons. So this first one did not contain a lot of building. In my experience, I've had some of the older kids get a little bored with this very first one and not excited to come back. So I've worked to get them more building, get them more excited about the season, make sure they really understand, what's coming, that, there's going to be a lot more fun building coming. And that really helps with that one. Decide their team name. That was something new we did last time too. We were always just mini nerds before, mini nerds by the color of their shirt. We let them actually pick team names last time. So they had a lot of fun with that. And you'll see as you get down to sessions 8 and 9, this is where they're building their team model. That's the big model to show off kind of everything they did for the year. And I would say it typically does take 2 full sessions to go through that. The team poster, my kids, I couldn't have stretched that 2 sessions. Usually I just had all the pictures printed that we did for the year and had them all laid out at the beginning of session 10, and they had their poster done within half hour, 40 minutes maybe. We would do some write-ups for the kind of all about me section as one of our intro activities a little bit earlier in the season, so that part was done, and it would limit some of the writing that they needed to do, because that was the only part that took a long time. But Some kids just weren't writers, so they were bored. That's kind of been my experience, that this one has not stretched to 2 sessions for me ever. And we've only done our own small events at the end because we're over on the western side of the state. So it's usually just us. And so we've usually been able to just spend 15 minutes kind of talking about what our sharing day was going to look like. So this is another one that personally we have tended to cut off if we are counting up how many sessions. We usually have done 10. But I know, Jen, you've done a lot of the festivals, so I'm going to guess you've had a different experience coming down to these bottom ones.
Yeah, so I typically, well, I still cut it short because like Peggy, like if the kid isn't building, they're wandering around the room. That's just how it goes. I will say that putting together the models, the final model does take a bit of time. It also requires the piece to be reliably built so it doesn't break when traveling over train tracks, which we learned at our second expo. In general, if you do go to a structured expo, you will go into a judging room with your team. The teams are expected to answer questions or provide a brief presentation that's no more than 5 minutes. Usually what I would do is have the kids build the poster, have the kids finish the model right around session 8 or so. So remember, I'm shortening up the other stuff. And then what I would do is I would take a session for them and the coaches to work together on speeches. Some of the kids can't read. So we've had parents actually draw pictures for the kids so that they could actually like read out the speech. But at least in the way I run the program, I do make all the kids provide a presentation so that when they go into the judging room, there is something that they can say to the judges and they know what their parts are. We have had a situation in the past where as a judge for FLL Explore, where the kids go in blind and it's difficult for them to know what to talk about. So if you kind of prep them ahead of time, it's a little bit easier. But just to give you an idea of what it's like in the judging room for FLL Explore, you do go to an expo, it's about 3 hours. You get a judging time slot. The judges are basically there to encourage your children on the team to continue to pursue STEM and ask them questions about their project. And it's supposed to be a feel-good exercise. Judges will go in there, figure out which of the standard awards would most apply to your team. And then they'll kind of quote unquote grade or assess based on a rubric. And you'll get that rubric after the event, along with some certificates and some kind of prize at the event. While you are in judging, other teams may not be. So there are usually activities at these expos for the kids to do. So it'll be something like, color this picture, make this windmill, make a shrinky dink. Last year, I think they had like a s'mores thing that they did at the FLL one. My son ran a game that was like build the robot or something like that. So if you do go to one of these expos, it's pretty amazing, to be honest. I mean, that's the reason why a lot of the parents my first year of doing this continue to go on, because the expo is the huge payoff when you're able to share with other teams that aren't teams that you're familiar with. So if there are opportunities to go to expo, I'd encourage you to go. Even if your team doesn't go to expo, I'd encourage you to do some kind of celebration with friends and family. During COVID, we did it virtually and invited parents, friends, whatever, to see the presentation virtually, which you could still do now if you wanted to on Zoom. Otherwise, when there weren't expos for a while, I'd have basically report like present outs. And so, we had the different teams go up to the front at the library, and then, family, friends, et cetera, came. And you would be amazed at what grandparents will go to. We had so many grandparents and little kids, and they were so proud to present. So no matter what you do, like Peggy said, give them an opportunity to celebrate in front of people that they care about, because I think that it really validates the time that they put into it. And this is not easy for these kids. Some of these kids have never done a build that is not structured before. So they'll fly through sessions 1 through 6 said here, 6 or 7, and then they'll get to the model and you'll be like, okay, well, what are you going to build? And they've never done it. They've never free built. Like Peggy said, it's great to get them to do some of those pre-build activities earlier in the season, so that when they get to the end, they have an idea of what to do. But again, some of these concepts aren't easy for especially the littler kids. So as Peggy said, if you can get yourself an iPad for those littler kids, it's better. I think that we had issues last year trying to use a standard computer with the five year to 1 or K5 to first grade crowd. But once they get into second, third, fourth, if you run it for 4, they have no issues using a mouse and the Chromebook or standard laptop.
I do also have down here, like what the lessons look like. I thought I'll jump to lesson 2. So you can really see exactly how well this is laid out. So this is that 10-minute, hold on, I think I missed a page. Session 1, session 2, here we go. Okay, so this is that 10-minute introduction activity that they have on that chart ahead of time, where they suggest you read the definition for teamwork and talk about it and have them give examples. And there's a spot in there. This is what their book looks like. And there's another page that I believe they have you going into that they can draw or write about the core value in there. This is where, like I said, we switched it to a building just because that has worked better for us. And when I've run these, I've run multiple teams at a time. So that is something that is slightly different than anyone who's running just a single team. But what I've done from there, so like I said, I have that on a slideshow. And then I usually bring, after they do their sharing with that, I'll bring them together and I have some slides that will kind of do a large group discussion on like these questions, talking about the topic for the day. And then I always pull up a video of some sort, because with multiple teams, I am not about to get them all out to a field trip. If you can get them on a field trip, that's awesome. But they do have some really great videos that, let's see, I don't know if it'll show you. Let me see if I can, I'll get to where those videos are in a little bit. I know I have a link later on with that. But I usually try to choose about a 5-minute video that goes with the theme. I watch them all ahead of time and just make sure it looks like something that's actually going to keep their interest. For whatever reason, last year, every video we had, they all had a British accent. So we got to learn what some British terms meant that we had to go through and say, just so you know, a lorry, that's the garbage truck. And, you know, some fun little things like that that they thought was fun to learn. But then you go into I'd break them back down and they'd go into their activity 1, which was going to be to build the windmill that day. And this actually gives you a little video. That's another video I include. It's like a 20-second video of how this model works so they can see it in action before they start building it. But their directions right here. Follow the building instructions in book 1 to build the turbine. Like Jen said, how many kids you have working on it. I've done it several different ways. I've had the second kit within my larger team so that we're breaking them down into 2 to 3 kids working on the build at the same time. Some years I've really liked how they split the book up and actually had like half the kids doing session 2, 3, and 4, while the other half were doing the 5, 6, and 7. So, and then they would switch the second half of the season. So you were working in smaller groups that way. That's another option that you can kind of play with that and work it around differently. I'm trying to think, there was another. We have done some where they've built, it'd be tough to tear this whole thing apart and switch. They were smaller builds when we were able to do that one, or they took on the build halfway through and swapped jobs, but it kind of depends on the build for the year. I don't know that one's as easy to work with. But once they finished, they would work with their main coach at their tables, and they'd go on to the next, place the wind turbine on the mat in the sandy area, put the units into the hopper, and then turn the crank and watch it go. Discuss how the wind turbine generates energy and explain how the units generated could be used. So this takes probably to about the halfway point of the meeting. They do have some extra things you could go into if you wanted to really dive deep. But like I said, that 1 hour session is kind of what's worked well with us. So we don't do a lot of that extra diving in there. And then the second half of the time, here they say, so this is where we have not had a lot of luck. The kids haven't loved doing the book work so much. So, but we would talk about these things still, explain what an energy source is in this box provided on the side. If you've got a lot of younger ones, that gets harder that they can't write that all out necessarily. But we still would talk through it, look at the mat and identify an energy source. So we'd look at that and they would just kind of discuss through these things as a group more than writing them down, and discuss what, let's see, what's it say? List the energy sources that you have in your community in the box. We then, after finished kind of discussing these top things, we just moved right into the challenge personally, where it says create another renewable energy source using the prototyping pieces. They're back to building something. And this is kind of back to that free build idea, where they go back to the regular bricks and build whatever they want that they think would be another energy source. They do that final sharing when we're down to our last 5 minutes and clean up, and then parents are there to pick up. That's how our sessions, probably a pretty typical session looks like for us. Jen?
Yeah, we have, so I run my groups before school. So actually they wake up, they go to school, and then there's a strict cutoff time as soon as school starts. So the kids have 50 minutes, at least how I run it before school. This has helped quite a bit in making sure kids are picked up on time. So not necessarily as easy to make sure that the kids get there on time. You know, in some instances, some parents have issues getting their kids up and going, but ultimately the commitment is that they're going to be there on time. So that's why I set expectations within my sign up framework that I send out in the Google Doc. When they first sign up, this is the expectations for the program. You're going to be on here on time. You're going to participate. You're going to be working as a team. This is what the program is, all that kind of stuff. But our stuff is run similarly to Peggy, although it sounds like she has more efficient kids at cleaning up. I leave 10 minutes for cleanup. So if kids come early, I start them off early with like some kind of a paper activity to get started. And then we go straight into build. A lot of these things on the second page where they're talking about energy storage sources, I typically assign that as homework, as pre-work or post-work. And then they talk about it at the beginning of the next meeting. Similar to Peggy, some of them write faster, some of them do pictures, some of them won't do it at all, unless they have some kind of parental help and they need some extra support. So that kind of takes the stress off of them if they actually come in with something done. And that's how I've done it in the past. It also helps you to clip through the book a little bit faster if you need to. In general, I have taken my kids in the past on field trips. We've been to the dump. We've been to the water preservation place. You know, we went to the park for the animal one. So I have taken Explore kids on field trips before, but be aware that some places will not take kids under a certain age. So make sure you call ahead and understand if you do go on a field trip, what ages are allowed. And make sure that a parent comes with their child if they go to such event. I am working on some field trips right now for my challenge team, which I hope to be able to bring my Explore kids to as well. If I find some good options for field trips, at least in the southeastern Wisconsin area that are free and allow kids of all ages, I'll certainly share those.
I told you I would show you those resources that they offer with the videos and everything. They have way more here than you could ever possibly use. So definitely look through it and figure out what you want ahead of time. But I think it's about page 7 by the time they get to the actual session videos. So let's see. Like I said, they've got a ton of these. So here's all the options for session 1 that they give you. Like I said, there's just so many to choose from. I usually choose somewhere between 3 to 5 minutes. And like I said, some so long that has worked well for us. But yeah, they have so many options. I believe there's even somewhere in here where it starts listing books if you wanted to do like a story time with them. Just so many resources, more than you could ever possibly need with that.
The books are also helpful for a free build, because sometimes if they see it on paper, then it's easier for them to build later. So typically in the past, we've run it in the school. So we were able to get the school librarian to pull books for us that we could use during the session. And then we would just distribute the books to the various tables, and then that would help them figure out how to build things. So over time, you find coping mechanisms for the kids who haven't built before, but I've also brought in pictures and stuff like that. You know, what is this a picture of? Can you tell me more about it? Have you ever experienced something like this? Stuff like that to kind of get them thinking. And then similarly, you know, if you can get them to do field trips that are easy to do with their family, like last year's was find an energy source in your community. That was one of our homework assignments before they even started. Hey, take a picture of yourself with the way that energy is used in your community. And they had to come the first session with pictures that they took themselves. It was free. It was easy. We had them uploaded to Google Drive or they printed it out. So the easier you can make it for people to participate, the more they're likely to participate and enrich the session.
Did we have any questions? I think that's kind of the end. My last slide is just the teaser that I'm assuming most of you have seen. The general season teaser. It doesn't give us a lot, just tells us it's STEAM. So
yeah, and I've got a kit that I can take you through forward, and actually I have the kit for this year if you guys wanted to see that as well.
Hey, this is Sean. I don't know if you can hear me. I do have a question. All right,
Okay.
here I go. All right, so I'm gonna have two teams. This is my first year coaching Explore Division. I did Challenge Division last year. I'm gonna do two Explore teams, 7 kids, so probably a team of 4 second graders and a team of 3 third graders, I believe. So I think Jen was maybe you that mentioned like having. So I have plenty of Spike Essential kits. Like I have the school has 7 Spike Essential kits. So having multiple so like in my team of 4, like I can actually give them 2 Spike Essential kits, so that each you know, the other 2 groups of 2 there. So when it comes to actually building like the kind of project or whatever you want to call it, that they're going to present, do you have them all build that together, or do you let them like build like 2 separate things, or like work together with 2 kits to build it? Or how does that kind of work?
Yeah, so I've used up to 3 kits in an Explore expo type activity before. There's no limit on the number of moving parts that you can have in your design. If you're going to have multiple motorized things in there, typically what I'll do is I'll have the kids work on why I call a schematic for them, and I make them draw out exactly what the model parts are going to look at, and have them label what they're actually going to build together or separately, so that you don't get some randomness that some kid insists on being there and no other kid agreed to, right? So that's kind of part of the, like, okay, we're all working together to figure out what this thing is going to look like. So like what I'll do is right before they build, I'm gonna have them do for homework, you know, what kind of things would you like to see in the model? And then could you draw them on a piece of paper? And then we kind of merge all those things out together. And then if some of the kids just want to motorize, say the windmill or whatever it is that year, their motorized part is done and they'll work on more aesthetic things. If some of the kids want to do some of the specialized projects within the Spike, or they want to do something completely different on their own, which we've done as well, then they're free to do that as well, as long as it fits in the theme and everybody agreed that that thing could go into the model. And I'll just say that the mat this year, know that any of you have gotten your kits yet, but the mat is humongous. You do not need to use this mat as your base, but just to give you an idea of how big this thing is, it's at least the size of my desk. I mean, it is huge. So I would say it's at least 4 feet long and 2 feet high. And it's got all sorts of crazy pictures on it. I've got some comments from some of the coaches that are coaching my teams this year, and they're like, listen, I got 2 young kids that mat is too bright and distracting for them to build on. And I said, don't worry about it. You don't have to use the mat if you don't want to use the mat. Sometimes like in the energy stuff, it made sense to use the mat because it actually provided some kind of baseline scene for them to use. But long story short, You can stick as many moving parts as you want on there. You can build on the mat. You can choose not to build on the mat, but the kids should be able to tell a story about what they built, right? I make them create a story around it so that all the pictures kind of go together. So last year I made them name their cities. And then they talked about what they were going to do in their cities. And then they actually walked through, you know, the different places that people went. This year, the actual challenge kit comes with what it looks like, kind of like a rock stage. There are 4 total bags, or 4 numbered bags with a couple multiples per bag in this kit. And then it looks like there's some kind of like a switchboard, which there's like this thing and then a switchboard as well. So I think there are 3 total models that they have to build similar to last year. And then, you know, what's nice is if your kids just want to have all 3 and have them all motorized, then you can either figure out how to make one motorized element power 2 things, or you can use 1 per model. So however you guys want to do it, it's totally up to you. I would just say have a bin and have separators. What's nice about doing this mat thing versus how it was 10 years ago is that before you were given like one big base plate and you had to have everything fit on the base plate. So the kids were very tempted to build very far up. And so it made it hard to drive with it in your car. Using this mat makes the majority of them want to build lower to the ground because they feel like they have more space to do it. So you're less likely to have a critical fail on the way to the expo or as you're cleaning stuff up and bringing it back out for the next session. If that makes sense.
Awesome. Thank you. That was an awesome answer. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
But no judge and explorer is gonna be sad if you come with multiple motorized things. It's cool to see what the kids motorize. And it's cool to get them so excited about, you know, showing off what they've done. So you want to motorize the whole thing, more power to you. It's not like challenge where you're restricted. You know what I'm saying? You can still use the kits that were before WeDo's if you want to. I don't know why you would want to, because those kits were very much rudimentary science kits. But that was what we used in our first season, was not even a WeDo kit. So, you know, they just want it to be Lego pieces and have some cohesiveness for Lego League. That makes sense. So they aren't allowed to like modify the pieces, put stickers on them, stuff like that. They have to be original Lego pieces, just like it is in Challenge. That makes sense.
Cool. Yeah, it makes sense. Thank you.
So we do have a question. I'll read the questions out just so everybody knows. I'll read the questions out so people watching the video later can hear what we're answering rather than just answering the question. So Joe is asking, I wanted to double check to make sure I can use Spike Prime with an Explore team. I'm willing to figure out how to make things work with Spike Prime.
Yeah, they did it last year. I judged it and I said, oh, that's cool. You're already ready for Challenge. So I know, come to me to judge you and I will accept it. I mean, we're not trying to keep these kids down, right? If they're able to figure it out, I mean, I think the key is, you can definitely figure it out, but bring the kids with you when you figure it out, right? Because you want them to come away with some knowledge of how this stuff works when they actually like demonstrate it, if that makes sense. So try it out yourself and then kind of bring them through the process with, you know, this is how we make things move. Can you make it go faster? Can you make it go slower? That kind of stuff, just so that they get some idea of what they're doing and why they're doing it. But yeah, one of the challenge coaches actually came last year with an Explore team with the super powered Prime. And it was pretty cool. It really was. But the code was kind of complicated. So the kids were able to mostly explain what was going on. Like I said, just bring the kids with you and everything will be fine.
Okay, we have another question from Mary. Hi, I'm a new coach here too. So can kids use more Lego pieces from their own home collections in addition to the Spike Prime kits? I'm sorry, the Spike kits.
Yes, you will. I mean, you'll be stretching a little on the thin side. I think if you're using just what comes in that kit, it's really nice to have those extras. The one thing that I will note between, if you're worried about keeping your pieces separate, that's going to be tricky. But keeping your WeDo or your spike kit separate from the other, so when you're done, you can put your other kit back together. That's the trickier part right there, because you definitely want your robot kit to have all those pieces for the future. So usually I have that on a separate table personally, and I'm like, okay, come over, pick what you need here, so they're not grabbing as many random pieces out of there that they could find in the other bin. They're more of the real specific, we need this to make this thing go kind of pieces.
Yeah, I will say that was a nightmare last year. This was the stupidest thing I've ever done. Do not be like me. We were done with the expo, and I told all the coaches, okay, just put all your stuff in this one bin and I'll sort it out later. Do not do that. Do not do that. Do not do that. Because these Spike Prime kits are, they're all specialized. The pieces are a special color. They're like really tiny pieces, and compared to the WeDo kits. Make sure that if you have two teams, Sean, the team A has all their stuff over here, team B has all their stuff over here. And when it's done, make sure that you sort these pieces first and then those pieces, because getting these kits back together, especially the Spike Prime, has been difficult because they actually have pieces that look like normal pieces, like a bunch of people and stuff, which this WeDo's never had. They were very clearly all technical pieces. So the WeDo's are easy to go resort again, but I didn't realize that the Spike Prime was so difficult to resort. So definitely separate those out. And then I would even recommend, and maybe Peggy doesn't agree, but once they figured out what's motorized, I would actually take away the box of Spike Prime stuff and only have these free build Legos, so that you aren't searching for, the lady with pink hair for hours and hours like I was in the December timeframe. So that's just, don't be like me and be Superwoman. It was not a good choice. And I spent hours trying to sort these kits back out. If you do have other coaches that are supporting you, I'd even say, if you have the opportunity to, have them take it home and sort it themselves and then bring it back to you. If you can do that, because then it puts the ownership on them to make sure that it all stays separate and together. I will say that for replacement parts, I could not find replacement parts for the Spike Prime yet online. I have found plenty of replacement parts for the WeDo kits. So sometimes the kids get very focused on what color something is rather than the function at this age. So if you do have a kit that's been passed down from year to year to year and it has different color pieces in it, you might want to give that disclaimer to the kids before they get looking for the green, slanty piece that doesn't exist anymore, because now it's a blue slanty piece, as an example.
Okay, we have another question. I'm a new coach for a rookie team. My question is whether the activities to be done come with teaching material, or coaches have to plan activities. Is there any benchmark?
Well, I think it's pretty good now, because when I started, there was no teaching whatsoever. We just had to figure it out. I would say that after 10 years of doing this on an Explore level, I just make my own content. But Peggy, you've done it straight from the book, and it seems like you use the season resources a lot more than I do, right?
Yep, I've done primarily, straight from the book with the little, tweaks, getting more building going versus writing, because otherwise every pencil in that box is also broken within 5 minutes, I feel like. But it lays out and gives you so many options you could do, and that time flies. Before you know it, your hour is done. So
yeah, I will say the time definitely flies. And I think that at least for the kids that are in my district, I think their limit for attention is 45 minutes max. So I have had a hard time getting first, second graders to focus for a double session before, especially after school. So just a warning, if you're trying to condense, you might want to condense maybe on a weekend day versus on a school day after they've just been sitting in school for several hours. It's difficult. Or bring snacks, but don't let them eat the snacks by the We Do or the Spike Crime kits, because then it gets messy. And you find weird pieces of food in your stuff, which I've also done. So don't be like me and make this mistake. I will say too that sometimes the kids don't come with basic writing utensils and stuff. So if you have old pencils, or your kids have old pencils from like previous school years, just start putting them in a bin and just bring them with, along with like old markers from previous school years. Nobody needs brand new packs of anything to do this activity, but having basic writing utensils, paper, etc. I've just started collecting those over time, just so that I don't have to worry about somebody forgetting their pen and then having the mad dash around the building to find a pen. Or dry erase for that matter. I always come with dry erase and an eraser wherever I go, provided we have a whiteboard to use it with.
Okay, are there any more questions from anyone? We have nothing showing up in chat at the moment.
So if there aren't any more questions, I can go over some budgeting stuff if you guys wanted to do that.
One more question just popped in. I don't know if you want to take this before or after.
Take the floor.
How many festivals have occurred in the spring typically?
One. Only LOL that I am aware of in Wauwatosa, which is right next to Mayfair Mall. They have a capacity of 24 teams, I believe. But last year, I think they had like 6. So it varies from year to year. Prior to COVID, they had, I think, close to 31 season when we went there.
So I'll chime in. I am aware of another school in Milwaukee that wants to hold a festival in the spring. And I also am highly confident that Badger Bots will have an expo in the spring as well. So the whole festival season is kind of under construction as we speak. So as we get more information, we'll get that posted.
Okay, I was just going to pop up a sample budget for Explore team real quick. This is, I charge $75, or I charge $80 now because of school additional fees on top of the entry fee. But I charge between $75 and $80 per kid. So typically for a team of 4, that would mean $300 just in dues. And then, anything else we might get for corporate sponsorships. You can get corporate sponsorships through where the parents work typically. If you go to a big corporation, that's typically the requirement. You have to have somebody who is coaching, mentoring something on the team, who is logging volunteer hours, and then they will sponsor the team. So at least for our teams, we've had that from G Healthcare and Johnson Controls in the past, which are big sponsors in the area. We also have done things to pay for Lego League, in addition to charging per student, like meal events. We've tried to sponsor different kind of activities, in the community, et cetera, for fees, that kind of thing. So there are ways to raise the funds, but typically you have to work for it. It has been my experience. I don't know, Peggy, if you've had it, people are just throwing money at you, Peggy. Perhaps.
Nope, ours, we go through Park and Rec, and we've done a $50 sign up per kid because we've been able to reuse enough stuff, and that all comes straight to our pocket to cover expenses. So that's worked well.
Yeah, I think, I wanted to make sure when I set up this budget that no matter what, I could pay for Wisconsin fees and I could pay for the kits year over year. So typically the 75-80 would cover that in addition to replacement parts and shirts. So that's kind of how I came up with the funds. And then if I got extra funds from a company or something like that, I usually would use that to buy more kits. That's just how we've done it in the past. This is the fee structure from last year. I know Peggy had more up-to-date stuff, but club fees are going in. Any kind of grants will go in. That we have an Elmbrook Foundation that gave us a grant one time for a bunch of computers. So we got those one year. As far as money going out, we have to pay FLL first Lego League, actually the corporation to get the kits. We have to usually pay for an expo. I don't remember, Craig, I think you said that this is now, I don't remember what you said was. What's it going to be this year? For the expo fee?
Well, for expos, we haven't really decided that.
Okay. So I budgeted 40 because I didn't know what it was going to be. So I just kind of guessed. Team t-shirts, depending on if you make them yourself because you have a cricket or a silhouette or something like that, or, you know, just do tie-dye, or you have a team shirt that's for like 4-H or, you know, your school, or you want to buy them. I budget $100. I never know how much it's going to be. Poster boards, art materials. If I'm not going to go to an expo, I need trophies for the kids. So I budget about $50 for that. And then that's pretty much it for fees. You know, I try to, again, if I get the money from like a G Healthcare or Johnson Controls, I put that money back into another kit for the next year, because I think that in all, I've gone through 11 total We Do kits, and I only have 7 left from those original 11 because I had to keep on building kits back together. And then remember, when you're buying these kits, that they go obsolete in 5 years. That's the reason why I'm still using all my We Do kits, because I still have so many and there's still enough to run 3 teams. But at some point, all those We Do parts are going to fail, and I'm going to have to upgrade to Spike, and to shell out, you know, $300 times, you know, 13 kits needed. I just don't have the funds to do it, is the long and short of it. So if you have a kit that you can get from somebody else and you can keep it alive, you basically try to keep it alive as long as you can. But if you are going for corporate sponsorship, every single corporation is going to ask you for a budget similar to this. So they know where the funds are going. And then you will also need some kind of tax exempt type affiliation. So I'm pretty lucky because I can just do that through Elmbrook School District. So I use their W-9. Peggy, you do it through Parks and Recs. You use theirs?
Nope. Actually, we ended up starting our own corporation last year. So now we have, otherwise we had the high school robotics had a coalition that they would let us run anything that required the tax exempt through them.
Yeah, so if you can get hooked up with an older robotics team, sometimes they can help out. If you're through a school, it's kind of easy, but you also have some restrictions with using the school as your holder of all the money. Or sometimes you can get a tax exempt support from like a local library or something like that. But you do want to do the tax exempt if you can, because it saves you a lot of money on things that you don't necessarily have to, you know, it's just extra money you can put back into the group, is the long and short of it. So that's a sample budget. I also had an example, unless there's another question.
Yep. I was waiting for you to get done with that.
Okay, good.
If it's a rookie hybrid team, how does the funding get distributed among the students?
What do you mean by a rookie hybrid team? I'm not sure who asked the question, but so everybody pays the same fee for us. I'm assuming, Peggy, you do the same for yours?
If I can get a volunteer coach, I try to get their kid in free. That's my goal.
Okay. Not even my kids are free, and I run the whole program for Elmbrook. So everybody pays the same and nobody gets any money back, is the long and short of it. If you have extra money, you use it to the next season. You try to make it even if you can, but to be honest, students from different schools is a problem. So if it's from different districts, so long and short of it, if it's in the same district, it's manageable within one school. If it's within different districts, then it's got to be a homeschool. If it's the same district, so for example, within Elmbrook, I run teams across Pilgrim Park and Burleigh, an elementary and a middle school for challenge. And then basically one is just the host school. And then the kids pay their fees through their normal infinite campus stuff. So depending on what school district you're through, your administration should be able to set up an account for you. That's what they did for us in Elmbrook. And so I run my 10 Explore and challenge teams through that. And actually, if you're already in Elmbrook, then just email me and I can get you set up. because we can just put you in underneath my teams, because I'm about to submit them into Infinite Campus anyway. Unless you want to charge a different fee, then we got a problem. So
yeah, no, thank you very much.
yeah, so feel free to just reach out and we'll kind of figure it out. But yeah, right now I've got students from 5 different middle schools and elementary schools that are going through my one program. And we just kind of manage it on the back end. And then at least in Elmbrook, I am the focal point for all funding. And then I just buy all the stuff for all the teams within their budget, and then it's done. As far as a deadline to sign up for a team, that's a good question. So for Explore, there really isn't a deadline, but if you're going to an expo, you have to be signed up and have all the kids registered in the tool and have all their consent and release forms before you go to the expo, because the expo will not let you in unless you have all your consent and release, and you can't get consent and release unless you actually registered your team. So you want to start your first process at least a month before you go through the expo, is the long and short of it. But we can get kits as early as now. So depending on when you want to start your team, if you want to start it for the fall, you should probably order your kits and register now. If you want to run it in the spring, you probably could wait till November, December to do it. The spike kits themselves, these guys, the actual robotic parts, they ran out of them last year. So you probably would want to front load any purchases of these kits to make sure that you get one. Is the long and short of it. But the actual models themselves, I don't remember them actually running out of those.
One year they did.
One year they did, but I don't.
Years.
Yeah, I think, yeah. So, I mean, you run a risk of if you wait too late, you might have to wait a while for your kits. You want to give them enough time to replenish their supply. But as far as like hard deadlines, there isn't a hard deadline. I see another question here. Do certain teams get invited to expos? You sign yourself up for an expo. If the expo has room, they'll take you. You just have to pay the fee and come, is the long and short of it. Was there a second part to that question? Oh, there seems like there aren't that many. Yeah, after COVID, there weren't very many at all. So a lot of us created our own to fill the gap, because a lot of schools in the area wouldn't allow the expos to be held. Now those restrictions are lifted. So it sounds like BadgerBots and other teams are more able to actually host those expos. So there should be plenty of space for the expos. I think, Craig, you were looking to figure out how many actual registered teams we have to make sure that there was space, but we don't have visibility into whether you're running those in the fall or the spring. So there is a potential that there will be bigger capacity, say in the spring than in the fall. You don't get into a fall, you just wait a couple of months and get into the spring.
I've already planted the seed with the challenge tournament directors, which basically is the fall, November through December, to see which ones of them are able to put on, or at least create the space for an Explore festival. The challenge is going to be getting volunteers to actually coordinate, put it together, get the activities, schedule the reviewing rooms, so on and so forth. You know, there's a lot of things that go into it. So the space for the fall may be the easy part. It's the coordination and, you know, making the festival, you know, fun for the kids, and getting those incremental volunteers, because a lot of them will already have stepped up to be with the challenge tournament. So, you know, it's a work in progress. We're going to try and make it happen.
The kickoff is August 1st. Is that next question? It's midday at noon, but you can rerun the video whenever your team first meets. So there isn't a formal kickoff for Explore.
Noon Eastern time. So
oh, sorry, noon Eastern time. So 11. But at least for the challenge teams in my area, we actually all get together and all build our models together at the same time. For the Explore, that doesn't make sense, because each team's journey is separated out through multiple weeks. So typically what we would do is show the teaser, say the week before the kids get together. And then we talk about the teaser the first session, kind of get them excited about it. I don't know, Peggy, do you actually show the teaser at your first for Explore?
No, we haven't. The main thing that I like that kickoff for is because I have access to all the materials online, so I can actually go in and see how they broke down the sessions, and get my plan rolling for if I need to change anything up or how I'm going to work that. That's the kickoff for me. It's for me as the coach, not anything different with the kids.
Yeah. One thing I did want to share with you, and I'm not sure if it is as I'm not exactly sure where I found this. It probably was when I was running the expo last year, but well, scrimmage. It wasn't an expo, it was scrimmage. But this is the actual reviewing sheets that the judges use in the room. Like, it's a very non-threatening sheet. You know, either the team is beginning, they're accomplished, or they exceed. So they've gone far beyond anything that the judges would have expected. But it's simple stuff like this, like, what did the team learn about the challenge? Did they actually talk about that in the room? Do they know how what they did could impact the community? Did they actually talk? So these are the things that you want your teams to hit. If you do have them prepare, or at least have answers prepared for when they get into the room. But it's nothing like, it's stuff that they could probably come up with on the fly if they're old enough. But if they're kindergartners, they would probably have some challenging moments. So typically what we would do is we would create our 5-minute speech and then give each kid like a little note card. It's okay to use note cards in Explore, so don't worry about it. If they need a note card, give them a note card. Some people actually use cue cards. I saw them use last year at LOL. It was very cute. But you know, the key here is you just want to get them used to presenting, right? I mean, there's no judgment zone on if they use cue cards or not. But typically what we would do is we would give them these cue cards, and then they would kind of say, okay, you'd ask them the question, they'd write down their answer, and then they'd have like something that they could say that they could read off of at the individual event. But it just goes through how to use core values. Tell me about your model, what moves, how can you make it go faster, slower, etc. What's motorized? How did you code it? Did somebody help you? How did they help you? And then the poster, show me your poster. Oh, that's a very beautiful poster. It's very creative. You know, what's on the poster, who made the poster, etc. Idea here is that the kids are going to make the poster. The kids are going to do the coding with some support, and they're going to make the model, right? So not so good answers in the judging room would be like, oh, my coach made the poster. Please don't make the poster for your child. Just go ahead, and no matter what it looks like, it does not matter. Create sections with headers and just let them present it however they want to. I've seen so many different varieties of posters, and as long as it follows some sort of logical flow at a very high level, it's totally fine. So this is the kind of stuff that they judge with in the rooms. And then I had one more thing that I wanted to go ahead.
That form you can actually find. I found it on the First Inspires website, in the like season resources. I've seen that in there, so they should be able to get a hold of that. And
yeah, and then this is an example. You guys do whatever you want, because honestly, you just need to survive the season, right? So do whatever you want to do to survive the season. But basically what I do for the coaches that are all in the same area is I'll put a link in there for the season material so they can get right to it if they need the electronic copy for any reason. And then I actually write out the rubric for them. I use the book as a guide like Peggy does, but I actually write down, this is what you guys are going to do on a weekly basis. If you guys fall behind, it's totally fine. Make it up next session. If you are ahead, go on to the next session. So each of the team is self-paced. The older ones typically go faster than the younger ones. So they can start building earlier if they choose to. But I come up with like some general like pre-work they can do before they even get there. We do like team icebreakers, pass out the books. You know, we have a little coloring sheet. So they color in themselves as Lego figures, and they slap it on the poster. So you already have half the poster done before you even get started. You know, some of the teams had been doing this for 3 seasons. So I create alternative activities that are similar on theme for them based on the various coding things that are in the WeDo or the Spike Prime app. So for example, like every year they have you build a fan, Like you can only build a fan so many times before the fan is just insane, right? A fan is a fan. It's just a fan. So at that point I was like, forget it. These kids can't build a fan for the third year in a row. So I gave them a harder assignment to do for those. And then for the older teams, typically, instead of doing the fan one, they'll do the more complicated assignment so they get to see something new. And then I rotate those year by year. If any of you want to see my alternate assignments, I'm willing to share them with you. No problem. I have a linked Google Doc that I can share for this season. We just haven't seen the challenge drop yet. So we don't know what the various pages will be. But basically, I tried to keep them on the same pages, just with different motorized assignments as appropriate. As you can see, like we did 4 sessions, and then we got to the point where we started in session 5, 6, 7, starting to talk about the project. So then we started brainstorming stuff. We had the team draw it out. This is the schematic idea, vote on it. Using Lego pieces, you get 2 votes, and then whatever gets the most votes is definitely in the model, and we'll talk about the rest. And then, this last session is the script and presentation creation, and then they practice, and then they do their expo or scrimmage activity. Last year, I got feedback that 9 sessions were too few. I added 1 extra because it's always too few to get all the building done. But certainly organize it however you wish, follow the book if you choose. If you want to do something more hybrid or have fewer sessions that you can execute this in, then, at least one other coach will try to do it in 9 or 10. And that would be me, and I can show you what I kind of put together. I will say that, if you guys haven't gotten the links yet, for the apps that you have to download to the computers. I do have those for WeDo and Spike, and I can put them in the chat for you. Just so that you can get a direct link to the apps that you'll need to actually run the electronics. So those are, oh, it won't let me do it, Jay.
Hang on.
Why won't it let me do it? This is like the curse of Jen. Let me see if I can get the links to post in. I always have problems with Slack and this thing.
Yeah, their Zoom's not set up to share links directly.
Oh, sad. Will this work?
Oh, there you go. Boom.
All right, there's one that's for WeDo. So don't download the WeDo link unless you're actually using WeDo kits. Those are the blue kits. And here is the link for, give me a second, for Spike. So direct links for you guys, just make sure that you download the right version of the app to your computer, whether it be Chromebook, iPad, laptop, etc. So what else can we give them, Peggy? I don't know what else we can give them. You guys are very brave going on this journey, by the way.
So one question about the apps, like, I mean, maybe to share personally, like, I've had a hard time on Chromebooks, at least the school's Chromebooks. I have a really hard time using the app. I just have them go to open a web browser like Google Chrome, go to spike.legoeducation.com instead of using the app. I haven't tried it on iPad, but that's like some feedback. Like, don't even bother trying to install the app if you're using a Chromebook. Even in my personal Chromebook, I don't even bother using the app. I can never get it to work right. I just use the website.
I think that's a great point, because at least at our school district, they won't allow us to put the software on the Chromebooks or the iPads anymore. All of the legacy kids have all the old stuff on there, but in the last couple of years, they've actually locked down quite a bit on what we can put on those Chromebooks and stuff. So I would definitely check to see, if you're a school-based team, if the district, or not the district tech person, but the tech person specific for your school will be willing to put the stuff on the computers for you. If they are not, then you have to come up with a device. So that's why the last couple of years, instead of focusing on WeDo kits and Spike Primes and Spike Essentials, I've been focusing on getting devices so I can actually have devices for each of the teams to use. Oh, there's a question about the Slack community. Are we able to put a link to the Slack community in the chat?
Yeah, I'll grab it real quick.
Yeah, the Slack community is amazing. Definitely join the Slack community. that, and I think that there's also a Facebook page for FLL Explore.
Share and learn.
Share and learn, yeah. So that's another place where you can go and get ideas, see what issues other people have had, at least for the challenge part of it. We found a lot of issues with mission models and stuff and how people have worked around it. For the Explore one last year, I think that there was a lot of sharing of like virtual field trips and stuff like that people had gone on. So there will be people who will get there before you. And if you can leverage what they've already done, even better, because I'm sure most of you have day jobs, just like I do. And you want to do a good job, but you also don't want to drive yourself insane, right? So I think, the kids will have a good experience as long as they have enough guidance where they can feel some accomplishment at the end of each session, right? So whatever happens, but and they'll get frustrated, and some of them will cry because they're frustrated, but engineering's hard, so it's okay. Almost every one of my kids over the last 10 years has cried, so I'm sure that doesn't make me a very good coach, but it's the reality. I mean, this is hard stuff, and it's hard for the coaches who haven't seen it before, and it's hard for the kids who definitely haven't seen it before. So, just do your best, and at least you're contributing to the betterment of society by doing this activity. So,
Jen mentioned that FLL Share and Learn Explore Facebook group. One thing to watch on that is a worldwide group. And I know at one point last year, some coaches kept talking about having to drive the robot across the mat. And we're like, you're in the wrong one. Come to find out that some regions had, what do they call it? Where they're testing something out that was actually something specific to their region that they did have to do, and the rest of us didn't. And that took a while to get everyone on the same page and realize what was going on there. So there are sometimes different regions have something slightly different. If you're seeing something that makes absolutely no sense, ask questions, definitely, and figure out what you do and don't need.
So I is kind of curious though, because this mat, it is possible that they might be piloting that this season and we don't know yet, right? Because this mat it really has no rhyme or reason to it. It really doesn't. And it looks very similar to the challenge mat. So there is a possibility that those models that you build have to be on a specific part of the mat, potentially. I don't know, but we'll kind of see what they actually have in store for us. They've been modifying this program year over year. I don't think I've had 2 years since the early stages of FLL that I was part of, where the 2 years were pretty similar. As soon as they started adding in these Inspire models, and the Inspire models keep on getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We'll see what they have in store for us today, but the long and short of it is there's a spike thing in Spike and a WeDo that has wheels on it that you can build from scratch. So worst comes to worst, if you have to drive something across the mat, there are built to print instructions for you to use. So we'll figure it out.
That is something I noticed. If you're going off book for the robot type build, the first build is always something with a motor making something turn. The second one is always learning the sensors, and the third one is a driving type build. That they do kind of teach them specific methods of figuring out those basic things going through there. But honestly, the robot part, it is really laid out in that app. It walks you right through the build. It gives you the example code where you just match it up and bring it up. The kids figure out if they're doing the pictures or the word coding, they figure out what it means really easily. There are cheat sheets, but they figure it out faster than us adults.
I don't think you're going to need a robotic company for help. Not on this one. Not even on the challenge stuff. The Slack channel will be much more useful to you than any robotic company that you can encounter. So, I think it's a learning curve, and that's the reason why I say, like, try to build it yourself first to get familiar with it. If you're concerned about it, I was concerned about it when I first started, and then after I figured out I had to do some pre-work to just build all the things ahead of time, it was so much easier. And that's something that you can do right away if you already have a kit available to you. Another thing is, these books are set up so that you can kind of select what activities you do first. So if you can't afford a spike prime right away, you can backload those lessons if you need to. You're just going to have to get it by the end because you have to have one motorized thing in your model, a minimum of one. So that's one of the requirements, is that something moves. So eventually you're going to have to get something to move within the model to make it an official expo ready model. When did kits run out, Peggy? Like November, December?
No, it was probably like February that, are you talking about the season kit, or are you talking about the?
I think the We Do
Robot
kits
kit.
were in and out for a while last year.
Yeah, they
The
were.
season kits, I think you're right, it's probably February-ish. But yeah, I mean, if you end up doing your activity in the spring, if worse comes to worse, you can see if another team nearby is willing to lend you the kit. Not the registration kit that comes with the thing, for the season, because you're going to need to register the team to be able to actually participate. But the actual spike prime or We Do kit, you might have more luck in the spring than the fall, or vice versa, depending on what other teams are in your area and might already have kits. But I will say, Mary, that I actually ran one year. I ran both a fall and a spring. So I had my son in the fall one, and then sponsored another team in the spring. And we used the exact same kits for both. And I was able to support more teams because I didn't do them at the same time. Because remember, those kits get absorbed into the model. So you can't necessarily like have one team build up their entire model, break it all down, and then have the other team build it back up at the expo. There's not enough time for that. So just assume that at least once you give the team a kit, it's going to be consumed for the season, and unless consumed for the amount of time they spend on the season, whether that's fall or spring, and then you can get that kit essentially back for the other part of the season.
I'll just give a little bit of guidance on the Slack channel too. So I did post the link into the chat for anyone here. I have been copying down all the links, so they will go on the YouTube video as well. If you're looking for specifically Explore, and you look lost when you go to the Slack channel, you're probably on the main page. Look over to the channel for FLL Explore. And we're running it out of there at this point. I'm not sure if we'll need to expand in the future, but if you're specifically looking for the Explore program, there's a channel, FLL Explore. I think it'll take you directly into the main general forum if you don't go there. So, which you're welcome to be on. So.
All right. Any other questions in the chat room?
That's all I see. I don't think we missed any.
All right. Well, fabulous. I'll just conclude with just one comment about the festivals. In my vast experience of going to one last year, but I've been reading up on it. It's not a judging exercise. They actually emphasize it's a reviewing exercise. Obviously, nobody's out there. It's not a competition. When you get to the challenge level, then, there's a little bit of a competition there. But this is the younger age level. Everybody goes home with some award. Every team gets recognized. The festivals are wonderful. You still get the high five line. The team gets recognized. They run through and slap the hands of all the judges, reviewers. It's just a wonderful low-key event. So hopefully we can put a lot more on this coming year. Give more kids, more teams opportunities to participate. So if nothing else, again, this has been recorded. It will go up on the YouTube channel. A big thank you to Jen and Peggy. Oh my God, just great stuff. And keep in mind, the website firstinspires.org is going to have a lot of new materials starting August 1st. And we're going to start putting an Explore website and a challenge website at badgerbots.org. So both places you should be able to get a lot of these new materials after August 1st.
So I'll post the Slack link in here again. Real quick, someone's asking for the Slack link. So, oh, you know what? I think I'm sending it to a specific person. Here we go. There you go.
There you go.
Can you guys see the link? Yeah.
Yeah, we can see it.
Perfect. Okay.
Or if you just want to send an email to me at FLLteams@badgerbots.org, I can send you an invitation, get you signed up that way.
Okay. Thank you very much again, Peggy and Jen. You guys were amazing as usual. We appreciate it.
All right.
Awesome. Well, good luck, you
Have a
guys.
good night and
Good
have a great
adventure.
season.
Thank you.
All righty.
Bye.